everyone, and my name is Leo. Today I'm going to talk about the global policy of climate change. So, going on to the first slide, I'm going to first discuss about the timetable of climate agreement. And back in 1980, that people started to get awareness about the issue of global climate change. It's because about the accumulation of the Industrial Revolution. And some of the area I point out here is we'll be discussing in a later slide, but I still want to mention a very important years, such as 2001, the Marrakesh Accords. It gave an instruction of how Kyoto Protocol should work, and it also provide definition for 4 additional activities, such as forest management, cropland management, grazing land management, and revegetation. And also some year like 2005 is actual year of the Kyoto Protocol enter into force. Also, like 2011, the Durban outcome I have shown in this slide is the Durban outcome. It was a turning point in the climate change negotiation. It is when government clearly recognized the need to draw up the blueprint for a fresh, universal, and illegal agreement to deal with climate change beyond 2020, and was the only conference address the issue of climate change beyond 2020. So, going on to the next slide. So, what is IPCC? The IPCC was created to provide policymakers with regular scientific assessment on climate change. And what IPCC can do is the IPCC determines the state of knowledge on climate change. It identifies where there is agreement in the scientific community on topics related to climate change or where further research is needed. In the assessment report, the main activity of the IPCC is the preparation of assessment reports. This includes 3 different kinds of assessment report, such as assessment report, special report, and methodology report. IPCC assessment and special report are prepared by 3 working groups, each looking at a different aspect of the science related to climate change. Like Working Group 1, the physical science basis, and Working Group 2, impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability, and Working Group 3 is the mitigation of climate change. The IPCC also has a task force on national greenhouse gas inventories, whose main objective is to develop and refine a methodology for the calculation and reporting of national greenhouse gas emission and also remove them. The working group and task force handle the preparation of reports, selecting and managing the experts that work on them as authors. But there is still a downside of IPCC, and the IPCC does not conduct its own research, and their reports remain neutral in the policy relevant but not policy prescriptive. Okay, so going on to the next one is the UNFCCC. So what is UNFCCC? It is an international environmental treaty addressing climate change. So what countries participated under the agreement? As of 2020, the UNFCCC has 197 signatory parties. Categorized into Annex 1 is the developed country, and Annex 2 is the developed country with special financial responsibility, and last is a developing country. The developing country are then required to submit their inventory to the UNFCCC Secretariat, and because key signatory states are not adhering to their individual commitment, the UNFCCC has been criticized as being unsuccessful in reducing the emission of carbon dioxide since its adoption. And so, because of this reason, the UNFCCC Secretariat is established. The Secretariat provides technical expertise and assists in the analysis and review of climate change information reported by parties and in the implementation of the Kyoto mechanism. It also maintains a registry for nationally determined contribution, which is known as NDC, and we're going to talk about later in a few slides. And established under the Paris Agreement, a key aspect of the implementation of the Paris Agreement too. The Secretariat ensure the target of the treaty can work out well. And what can we expect through the agreement? So for the Annex 1 countries, were expected by the year 2000 to reduce emissions to 1990 levels. Many of them have taken strong action to do so, and some have already succeeded. The convention also seeks to help developing countries limit emission in a way that will not hinder the economic progress. So the next one is the sign of the Kyoto Protocol. So the target for Kyoto Protocol was to develop industrialized countries made a promise under the Kyoto Protocol to reduce the annual hydrocarbon emission by an average of 5.2% at the end of the year 2012. And this number will represent about 29% of the world's total greenhouse gas emission. Target, though, depend on the individual countries. This meant each nation had a different target to meet by the years. Members of the European Union, such as EU, pledged to cut emission by 8%, while the US and Canada promised to reduce their emission by 7% and 6% respectively by 2012. So we can take a look at the graph down here. As I mentioned, the protocol was signed in the years of 1997, and we look at the year of 1997 around here. The developed countries such as EU and US, because of the sign of the protocol, have reduced or slowed down the production of carbon dioxide. However, the red line represents the East Asia country, which is the developing country, which have a major jump after year 2000. The Kyoto Protocol recognized that developed countries are principally responsible for the current high level of GHG emission in the atmosphere as a result of more than 150 years of industrial activity. As such, the protocol places a heavier burden on developed countries than less developed countries. It is why the protocol doesn't work out well and later on lead to the signature of Paris Agreement. Okay, so Paris Agreement. The target was to limit global warming to well below 2, preferable to 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. The Paris Agreement worked on a 5-year cycle of increasingly ambitious climate action carried out by countries. By 2020, countries submit their plans for climate action known as Nationally Determined Contribution (NDC). In their NDC, countries communicate action they will take to reduce their greenhouse gas emission in order to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. Difference between the Paris Agreement has a bottom-up structure in contrast to Kyoto, which is top-down. And this is a major difference, which sets commitment targets that have legal force. The Paris Agreement, with its emphasis on consensus building, allows for voluntary and nationally determined goal, which is having all countries participated under this agreement. Unlike what I previously discussed, Kyoto Protocol forced the other countries to cut emissions by letting developing countries accelerate the production. And another key difference between the Paris Agreement and the Kyoto Protocol is their scopes. While the Kyoto Protocol differentiates between Annex 1 and non-Annex 1 countries, the Paris Agreement, as all parties will be required to submit emission reduction plans, which make it an executive agreement rather than a treaty. Going on to the next slide is the world after the Paris Agreement. With the Paris Agreement, countries will report transparently on action taken and progress in climate change mitigation, adaptation measures, and support provided or received. In the Enhanced Transparency Framework, the ETF represents an important component of the ambitious cycle in the global climate regime established by the Paris Agreement by building trust and confidence that countries are taking action to meet their national climate target and action defined in their NDCs under the Paris Agreement. However, the real outcome is pointed out in a study in the Nature World shows that as of 2017, no major industrialized country is implementing the policy they envisioned and has not met their pledged emission reduction target. According to UNEP, the November 2016 emission reduction target will result in a temperature 3 Celsius higher than pre-industrial level. Also, the lost motivation is when 2017, the US withdrew from the agreement. It is a major setback to the global efforts to combat climate change. Scientists predict that if emissions are not restricted, the global temperature will rise by 4.2 degrees Celsius. If the commitment in the Paris Agreement are fully implemented, the global warming will be controlled at 3.3 degrees Celsius by 2100, and the United States withdrawal can make the rising temperature reach 3.6 degrees. However, don't be panicked. We recently can see the improvement in technology, such as the solar panel have a significant jump, and reducing the cost and the energy conversion rate has increased. Also, the EV electric cars start to push into a major market, and even with no agreement backup, like for us, all of the agreement I mentioned didn't work out really well, but we can still persist and seeking our way to save our planet. And thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.